I am not very good at writing, so I am sorry if this is a bit messy or hard to understand. I don't really know where to begin, but I will do my best. My partner and I have been together for almost 6 years. We have an 18-month-old baby. I'm a man in my mid-30s. She's in her early 30s. This was supposed to be our first child when we were teenagers. We were each other's first love and dated for about 3 years. After that, we went our separate ways for 10 years. We were just young kids back then, and it was unrealistic to expect our relationship to last forever. While we had a good relationship, we grew apart and started moving in different directions in life. However, many years later, we found our way back to each other. During our time apart, she had a few long-term relationships with other people. It seemed like she has a tendency to be in committed relationship for a long time. I once asked her if she had ever cheated in previous relationships, and she said she hadn't. I must admit, it made me feel good to hear that. When we got back together, she had just ended another relationship. Even though she wanted to be with me, I tried to advise her to take some time and figure out what she truly wanted. I thought it might be in her best interest to wait and reflect, considering she hadn't been single for more than a few months at a time since she was a teenager. I advised her that coming back to me might not be the best choice. It could have felt comfortable due to our history and our close-knit families. I genuinely tried to guide her in the right direction, but she was determined to give our relationship another shot. To be honest, I could have easily rekindled our romance right away, but I wanted to do things properly. I wanted to make sure she was making the right decision because I cared deeply about her making the best choice in her life. I want her life to be happy and fulfilling. After those 10 years we were apart, I never stopped loving her. I will admit, I love her maybe a bit too much. I was fixated on her to the point where I hadn't even considered being with other women. I had accepted that we would never get back together. But then, surprisingly, it happened. Anyway, on August 6th, I discovered that she had been having an affair with her best friend's husband for 2 months. I found out by going through her text messages one night. After enduring 2 months of intense intuition and alarm bells going off in my mind, I could sense her growing distance, and I was highly motivated to address our issues and figure out what had gone wrong. Her best friend generously allowed us to stay at her house and take care of our child while my partner and I were at work. Because of this arrangement, my partner spent a lot of time at her friend's house and over time started to develop feelings for her friend's husband. To be honest, our relationship hadn't been going well for the past couple of years. Looking back, my partner began to distance herself about a year before we had our baby. It wasn't something extremely concerning, but it was noticeable once the initial excitement of our relationship had passed. Our physical intimacy slowly declined, and before our baby arrived, we were only intimate about 3 times a month on average, sometimes even less. During her pregnancy, we didn't have any sexual activities at all. She had some health complication, so we couldn't resume our physical relationship for a while after the pregnancy either. Gradually, this lack of intimacy became the normal for us. It became awkward and uncomfortable to bring up this subject and try to find a solution. In the back of my mind, I was attributing some of these issues to the pandemic quarantine, hormonal changes related to pregnancy, and other factors. In June, which looking back was just a week or two into her affair, she had a really deep and honest conversation about all the problems in our relationship. I felt hopeful and started working extremely hard to fix our issues. I was like Superman, doing everything I could to support our family, taking care of chores, being attentive, taking her on dates, basically trying my best to be a better husband and partner. Unfortunately, all of this effort came too late because she was already involved with another man. After we discovered the affair, she admitted that she had been struggling with the lack of intimacy, and so had I. Surprisingly, we hadn't had a serious conversation about it before. I know it sounds kind of ridiculous, and I think it is too. I have always been deeply in love with her and was willing to accept things as they are without rocking the boat to avoid making her feel upset or down. I wasn't completely satisfied, of course, but I was grateful to spend my life with the woman I have always wanted, the one who gave me the greatest gift in life, our son. In my mind, there were many factors that could have contributed to the problems we were facing, like the pandemic quarantine, pregnancy hormone, and postpartum depression for both of us. Anyway, as soon as I found out about her affair, I immediately told her best friend that same night. Her best friend's marriage is torn apart too. They also have a very young child, just a few months older than ours, and they are going through a divorce. The husband is going to lose his home and everything. I admit that part of me feels a sense of satisfaction when I think about his suffering, but at the same time, I am filled with anger towards him. He knew me personally, and he knew we had a young son together. Since the affair was discovered, we had many heartfelt conversations. She seemed genuinely sorry for what happened. She cut off contact with best friend's husband, told her mom and sister about it, and has started individual counseling. She also set to begin therapy with a new therapist in January. On the other hand, I have been struggling to open up to anyone about this. I did tell her now ex-best friend because I saw her as a friend, and I thought she deserved to know what kind of people our spouses were. However, aside from that, I haven't been able to confide in anyone. I can't even bring myself to tell my parents, who love my partner deeply and see her as their own daughter. They are incredibly proud that we started a family and have a grandchild. Moreover, I am deeply embarrassed by this whole situation, so I'm hesitant to tell anyone. I am aware that keeping this to myself isn't good for my mental well-being or recovery, but I'm finding it difficult to overcome this hurdle. To be honest, I am not sure if I even want to. Now, as we have had all these conversations, she's committed to being honest and working on recovery. She's answered my questions and admitted to things I might not have discovered otherwise. But then, in October, she came to me with another confession. There was yet another man involved. According to her, just a week or two before she began the affair with her best friend's husband, she had a one-night stand with someone from her past. Now, here's the twist. This other man she had the one-night stand with was a guy she met at work when she was 19, and he was 40 at the time. Now she's in her early 30s, and this guy is in his mid-50s. I have to admit, this revelation has completely devastated me. I could somewhat understand how the affair with her best friend's husband could happen, given the time they spent together and the feeling that developed over time. But this other guy, this really threw me for a loop. How could she start an affair with her best friend's husband using the excuse that it was just about X and her need for physical intimacy when she had already been involved with this other man? The idea of my incredibly beautiful wife being intimate with this unattractive older man is both repulsive and shocking to me. He's the same age as her mom. She told me that they had sporadically kept in touch over the years and had been sexually involved a few times when she was single. Then she went to visit him to catch up and seek advice on our relationship issues, and he made advances toward her, which she eventually gave into. I can't even believe I'm typing all of this out. She's deeply embarrassed by her involvement with this older man. Why she was willing to talk to her mom and sister about her affair with her best friend's husband. She can't bring herself to discuss the relationship with the older man because of the overwhelming embarrassment she feels. It's clear that my spouse and I both have our share of issues. We come from troubled families, and we initially connected because we were the ones who seemed normal despite our challenging upbringing. Somehow we managed to build decent lives for ourselves, and now here I am feeling completely shattered by the woman I have loved since I was a teenager. This had all happened just a year after we welcomed our child into the world. Since August, I have shed tears every single day, and I am not sure I can ever fully recover from this betrayal. Before discovering this affair, the only tears I had shed in years were tears of happiness on the day I saw my mom and dad holding my newborn son. The drastic turnaround in my emotions since that day has left me feeling utterly overwhelmed and lost. I can't help but wonder if this older man she had the initial affair with has been a part of our lives longer than she's willing to admit. But I don't have any concrete evidence. I have to rely on her word. In the back of my mind, I wonder if this could explain why we drifted apart even before her pregnancy. Maybe he had been in the picture all along. It's hard to say for sure. I did come across some messages between them on Facebook and a text. One message was a simple birthday greeting, and the other was him congratulating her on the baby and expressing his happiness for her and her little family. Then he went on to destroy it all. When I looked at the dates the timing of those messages, and the words they used. It did seem like they haven't been in contact for a long time, but it's hard to know for sure. I felt like we were at a breaking point, and there doesn't seem to be a good outcome for me in this situation. I am forever tied to this woman because of our child, and there are times when I just wish I could disappear and never have to face this again. I am quite familiar with the resources available to deal with situations like this. Since I discovered the affair back in August, it seems like I have been constantly consumed by thoughts about it. Maybe I'm putting too much focus on various programs, websites, and online communities like subreddits, and not giving myself a break from thinking about all of this. It's hard to avoid, given the circumstances. The fact that I'm doubting whether my son is truly mine is causing me nightmares. He looks like me, but given what had transpired, I want to be absolutely certain. I have taken the step of requesting price quote for a paternity test, and I plan to go through with it by January. Admitting that I have doubts about our son's paternity is obviously very tough on my spouse to hear. I love my son deeply, and because of that strong bond, it's natural to see parts of myself in him. I understand and agree with your perspective on the paternity testing. When I initially brought the idea to my spouse, she was understandably saddened by my doubts, but she also understood why I had those concerns. I don't think she can justify or come to terms with betraying both of us, especially her friend who had done nothing but help us and make our son's life better. It's really difficult to comprehend, almost like something you would expect from a sociopath, which is so different from the person I have known for almost 20 years. She always appeared to be empathetic. As for where all of this was happening, I got a full confession from my wife. It began at her friend's house. She had talked to her friend about our issue with intimacy, and it seemed like her husband found out somehow. My wayward wife says her friend informed her husband, but I wouldn't be surprised if she went to him directly, especially given her action with the older man. Towards the end of May, he made a comment like, "It's a shame you can't find someone to have fun with who wouldn't say anything." I would, but I am married. Then about a week later, while she was over at her friend's house, her best friend went to the store and left them alone. They had X in a messy garage during those 15 minutes. It's just unbelievable. Apart from that, the affair happened in various places. Our house, their house, and even his car. Sometimes she would spend the night at their house. I work from home most days, but on Saturdays, I would go into office, and she had him over a couple of times during those weekends. They even had X in our own bed, which is something that still devastates me. It's truly unbelievable that I'm still here dealing with all of this. It happened in our bed once, and on our couch once, according to my wayward wife. My son was home both times, but put down for a nap. They also had X multiple times at his house, and as mentioned, my son was being babysat there, so he was also present during those times. She told me it only happened if he was asleep. He apparently came to my house once, and my son wouldn't go down for a nap, so nothing happened. The depravity is disgusting and really hard to think about and accept. This is one of my biggest struggles. I agree with you that it's ridiculous that she claimed to go there to discuss her issues. I told her directly, and she admits now that in hindsight, she had the wrong reason for going there. Maybe one night stand isn't the best term, but according to her, it had been almost 10 years since they were last together. I did find messages where they talked about things like, "How is work going? And you still work at X company? How is the family?" These messages were from 2019 and 2020, so it doesn't seem like they were in close contact, but you can never be entirely sure. It's quite a contradiction to understand how someone can commit to a relationship, decide to have a baby with their partner, and yet not seem to care about them deeply, especially in our situation, where financial reasons don't apply. It's not like she couldn't find a more successful partner. She's incredibly attractive, and finding someone else would likely not be a problem for her. However, I don't want to give the impression that I was a flawless partner either. I mean, we hadn't had physical intimacy for a while, and that's not solely her fault. I admit that I sort of accepted the situation as it was. I hadn't invested enough quality time in our relationship and was content diving into my own hobbies. I have always loved her, and when I reflect on the past 2 years, I am shocked at how I allowed things to deteriorate When she approached me about having a baby and we decided to go through with it, and she gave me our son, I can't even put into words how amazing I felt. The woman I've loved for so long chose me, an average person, to be the father of her first child. I am not wealthy or highly successful, just an everyday guy. She's stunningly beautiful, and prior to all of these discoveries, I would describe her as a very warm and caring person. It's almost like she became unrecognizable to me now. I have known her for approximately 20 years. I thought I knew who she was. It is so very unsettling. The worst part is, even if we do split, she's still the mother of my son and will still have 50% custody. So she will still be a role model to him. But then, she will have some other man who will raise my son. And I know how I will react. I will never get into another relationship again. So my son's entire experience of how a relationship/family should work would go through the lens of my wife and whatever relationship she ends up in next. Unfortunately, we are stuck in a lease for approximately another 4 months, but I'm absolutely certain that I will be moving out after it expires. Whether she chooses to come with me is still uncertain. I am not sure about my decision yet. As I mentioned, she's in individual counseling, and I am on the waiting list to start counseling as well. So I would like to explore this option before making any final decision. Some days, it feels like my mental state is improving, but then suddenly, for no apparent reason, I wake up one day and find myself back at square one. Today feels like D-Day again, and I can't explain why. My wayward wife, who strayed, has experienced utter humiliation. The other betrayed spouse actually reached out to all their mutual friends and disclosed everything. Since they used to work together, she even contacted all of my wife's co-workers and informed them about what had happened. In some ways, it made me feel guilty for telling other betrayed spouse, but I firmly believe that she deserved to know. My wayward wife is going through a lot of headache as a result of being exposed, and I don't feel sorry for her because she's going through the consequences of her own selfish decisions. I have been grappling with a few questions, primarily how long has all of this been happening, and how long has she been deceiving me? I consider myself a smart and technologically capable person. I looked into old iPhone backup and conducted some data recovery, sifting through old messages and such. Regarding the timeline of the affair with her best friend's husband, I am inclined to believe her version based on evidence I have uncovered and what other betrayed spouse has found. My intuition was also on high alert during that 2 months period. It's remarkable how powerful intuition can be. Finding out about the affair was almost a relief, confirming that I wasn't crazy and my intuition wasn't entirely off. As for the older man she has a history with, I am more uncertain. However, I did mention I saw messages from 2020 and 2019 that suggested they hadn't been in contact for quite some time. But it's hard to say for sure. I don't think she's been lying the entire time, but at the very least, she was during that 2 to 3 months period. I have spent the last 4 months deeply investigating this story, even reaching out to both affair partners directly. Despite all that, I haven't been able to find any evidence that would definitely prove her claims false. However, given her previous action, we all know she's quite skilled at convincing deception. I can't express how grateful I am. For the past 4 months, I haven't spoken to anyone about this, so this interaction is incredibly therapeutic for me. It's quite shocking to me that she turned out to be this type of person. After everything we have been through, I am still in a state of disbelief that she's so different from the person I thought she was. It seems that my ability to judge people isn't as reliable as I thought. Even though I don't think our relationship would survive, I genuinely hope she finds a good therapist who can help her address these inner struggles. She won't find true happiness until she confronts these demons. As one reader pointed out, just because they didn't meet for X or exchange frequent texts doesn't mean that she wasn't inappropriately connected to him. His occasional messages were enough to maintain their affair, even if it wasn't an ongoing sexual relationship. I have discussed this with her, emphasizing that this man must hold some significance in her life to remain in contact over all these years. She claimed it was only about X and that she had no interest in pursuing anything beyond that. I also agreed that my parents, especially my father, might have valuable insight given their life experiences. I plan to have a conversation with him about all of this. I understand that I might never be able to fully let go of this pain, not until the end of my life. It's not because I am not an attractive person or anything like that. I know I could potentially find another partner, but after going through this incredibly painful experience, I am not sure if I want to pursue that path anytime soon. Maybe someday though. I made the decision to discard the mattress that she used during her affair with her affair partner. In the immediate aftermath of discovering the affair, I was religiously dedicated to working out. My diet wasn't great, and I didn't have much of an appetite. In fact, I lost 20 pounds because I couldn't eat or sleep. However, I noticed a significant improvement in my mood when I stayed physically active and got my blood pumping. Unfortunately, it's bitterly cold here right now, but I'm still trying to find ways to stay active and maintain a healthy lifestyle. With everything else going on, it can be easy to put self-care on the back burner. Update: I am utterly devastated and I feel like disappearing from everything. I just found out that the son I thought was mine isn't mine at all. I can't begin to fathom why she did this to me. She could have been with anyone else, but she chose me, came back to me, only to break my heart. I can't imagine how my parents would react to this revelation, considering I haven't even told them about the affair. I confronted her about the DNA test result, and she broke down, admitting that she thought he was my son. Some of the people here were right. She gave me more detail about the man in his 50s. She said she had been physically intimate with both of us during the same time, but she genuinely believed he was the father. I couldn't contain my anger, and I told her that our relationship was over. I began the process of dividing our assets with the help of a lawyer. Accepting that he's not my son will take some time. It feels like I'm trapped in a never-ending nightmare. The most challenging part for me was making that phone call to my parents. I not only had to tell them about my wife's infidelity, but also break the heartbreaking news that my now 9 son is not biologically mine. He has been a source of immense happiness for them. It's particularly difficult because my parents are divorced and I never wanted to follow in their footsteps. But here we are, repeating the same cycle. Their divorce, just like ours, was also as a result of infidelity. My family has a history of infidelity. My mom cheated on my dad, and in retaliation, my dad had an affair with the other person's spouse. I only found out about this a few years ago after some investigation. Despite their flaws, I still love both my parents very much, and they were good parents to me. My wayward wife also has a history of infidelity in her family. Her mom cheated on her dad, got pregnant, and led her dad to believe that wayward wife was his child for a long time. It's a complicated mess. It seemed like this scars run through multiple generations. I can see how my wife's unhealthy view on men may be influenced by the way her mother and sister have treated men in their lives. Both my parents and I are still shocked over recent event. My wife has left our home to stay with her parents, while I have chosen to stay alone for the time being. My parents are coming to stay with me tomorrow because I had broken down and admitted that I'm currently struggling with my mental health and have thoughts of self-harm. It's been a week since I learned that my son is not biologically mine. I am still mourning. My wife is still with her parents, and she sent them to pick up some of her belongings because she couldn't face my parents. They had embraced her as their daughter, and she deeply embarrassed and humiliated everyone, including her friends. She even quit her job because her friend exposed her at work. My life feels as miserable as ever, and I have taken some time off work to focus on my mental health. I have scheduled individual counseling, which begins tomorrow. This is the end of the post. Now let's unpackage this story and try to understand why this affair happened and the red flags that the original poster had missed. To start, let's go back to the upbringing of his wayward wife. She herself is a product of infidelity and deception, so it's quite ironic that the cycle is still ongoing. The first red flag I see in the story is when the original poster said that he's always been in love with her, despite the fact that they dated and they broke up. So his love for her seems more like an obsession. I believe that the reason why the wayward wife came back to him was because she wanted a baby and she was jealous of her best friend having a baby, which is why she felt like she had to settle down and have her own baby, because most women copy each other, which is why sometimes you see a group of friends all getting pregnant at the same time. When she saw that her friend is pregnant, she quickly looked for the closest simp she can find, which is her ex-boyfriend, who had always been obsessed with her, and she settled with him. Even the original poster can't even understand why she chose him. That's the reason why. She chose him because she was jealous of her best friend having a child and she wanted to be like him. And she even went as far as having intimacy with her best friend's husband. That just indicates that she's truly not a good friend and she's not looking out for the best interest of her friend. She's just jealous of her friend. When she went ahead trying to prove that she can take her best friend's husband, she can sleep with her husband, why carrying on a relationship with a man that's significantly older than her? So I wouldn't go as far as saying that the original poster got what he deserved, but I mean, he kind of did, because he has this one-nightish obsession of a woman that he dated years back, and he prevented himself from looking at other options. You know, men get good by dating a lot more, because as a man, you almost never get approached by women unless you're a celebrity. But women get approached by men all the time, especially if they're attractive. So they have a lot of experience with men. Why men are just clueless. So if you're a man and you haven't had any other experience dating, and you just found a girl and married the first girl you had sex with, then she will run circles around you, because you have no understanding of women intuition, you have no understanding of social dynamics, and you have no understanding of women. So in some way, the original poster got what he deserved. But the saddest part of this story is, of course, the young son that will be raised in a broken home. And unfortunately, the cycle will continue. Thank you for staying to the end of this story. Please support the channel by subscribing and liking the content. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Thank you.